first curriculum committee meeting of the year. Can we have a roll call?
Ann Harrigan. Here. Tony Perugini. And Faith Ham.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. To the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We do have guests tonight. It's so exciting. But anyway, first item on the agenda is public comment. Do we have any that is on record anywhere? No public comment. Okay. Item 2, review of the minutes of the June 12th, 2023 meeting, the fastest meeting ever. You've had a chance to review them. It took a minute.
To accept the minutes.
Okay. I second, no discussion. All in favor of approving the minutes? Great. All right, new business. Back again, flexibilities for implementing the Connecticut guidelines for educator evaluation for the 2023-24 school year.
Yes, so you're all familiar with these flexibilities because we've been implementing them since we went into COVID. So this should be the last year of any type of flexibilities because the state is coming out with their new evaluation plan, which we should hear more about this year. So the flexibilities this year would include exactly what they have included over the past few years, and that is more frequent informal teacher evaluations and no formal evaluations. So principals can certainly look at lesson plans and can have pre and post conferences with teachers, but that's no longer a requirement of this plan. And so if you are to adopt this evening, you would put it forward to the full board at our next meeting, then we would adopt this and put it in place for this school year. The PDEC committee in district is aware of this and in support of us doing this again this year.
What is that committee?
It's the Professional Development and Educator Evaluation Committee.
And can you, for the audience, could you just summarize again the value of the informal evaluation over the more structured formal?
Yeah, I think teachers and administrators like it in that it's what you're doing on a regular basis, day in and day out. It's not what some might refer to as a dog and pony show for a formal evaluation. It's more realistic, can happen at any time. They're not pre-scheduled or pre-planned.
So they're more spontaneous. Okay. And teachers are okay?
They are. They much prefer it.
Okay. All right. Do you have any questions?
No, we've been talking about this for a while.
Yeah, I know. Do we have a motion to
Move forward?
move it forward to the
Is
board?
that what the motion would be?
Yes.
Yeah. So moved.
Great.
Okay. Mr. Wordsmith over there, okay.
We've got it. We're forwarding the Cheshire Education Evaluation Committee's recommendation to continue the implementation of the flexibilities for CT guidelines for educator evaluation for the 23-24 school year, as offered and allowed for by the state for the full board of education to consider.
Excellent. Okay, all in favor, or?
We voted.
We're
voting
voting to move it to the full board.
Yes, yes,
And then you'll have another chance to vote on it.
okay. We're a little rusty. Okay, so.
First meeting of the school.
That's right, so, yeah, I think we both raised our hands, so.
Yep.
All right, well, that was easy. All right, item 4 on the agenda, informational items, starting with Connecticut state testing results.
You bet. So we're going to start here. So our state testing results come in over the summer. They come sort of in dribs and drabs in the spring, and then they're finalized over the summer. And then they're released to the public to see, and you can then compare apples to apples with other districts. So that's what we've been busy doing since late August. So the 3 state assessments, the only 3 state assessments that we're going to cover that are asked of us and required of us by law are the Smarter Balanced Assessment, which is for grades 3 through 8, the Next Generation Science Standards Assessment, which is grades 5, 8, and 11, and then of course the SAT, which is an SAT school day separate from the SAT that students take, multiple times and all across the country. This is in Connecticut, the indicator of mastery in our state. It's called the SAT school day, and that is for grade 11 students. So if we start off by looking at our Smarter Balanced Achievement for students in grades 3 through 8, this gives us a trend growth, or trend since 2015-2016. So in the green boxes, you can see what our highest scores were. If you look at the percentage, the percentage of students who met or exceeded band 3 and 4, that is considered mastery. So you can see that in 2018-2019, we hit our peak. It was the year before COVID. We had been making some really great trends. And then in 21-22, that was after the pandemic, and we had dropped down. And now in 22-23, you can see that we are back on the upswing and catching those scores that we had before the pandemic. So as we look at all these scores today, I think the trend that you are going to see is that we had a high before the pandemic, and that in most areas we are trending back upwards. We're on an upward trajectory. There are a couple of spots where that's not the case, and we'll talk about what our plan is for addressing that. We made some really nice growth, particularly in math this year. This talks about our growth rate. So the way the Smarter Balanced Assessment is set up, they're not only looking at student achievement, but they're also looking at student growth. So there's 2 ways that they look at growth. One is the growth rate, which is, okay, Faith has to make 100 points to get her full points of growth. You have 100 points to make. Maybe Marlene has to make 200 to cover her growth for that year, depending on where she tested last year. If you and I each get the points that we needed, if we hit our growth rate, it's a straight up yes or no. It's a binary indicator. If you got 99 but you didn't get 100, it's a no. That's the growth rate. It's a yes or no answer. The average percent of target achieved, also called APTA, is more along the lines of the percent of the achievement that you made. So if you scored 99 of your total 100 growth points, then that's the percentage of the growth that you made. Students who are making anything above that, you can make up to 110% growth. This is just another view of the exact same scenario. On the left, you have, this is all English language arts. On the left, you have our growth rates since 2015-2016. And on the right, you have our average percent of target achieved. So you can see we're going up from 21-22, trying to catch where we were in the pre-pandemic year. If we look at math growth, you see the same thing. Up to 56%, and in APTA at 73% of the average percent of target achieved. So we're moving in the right direction. So then we switch to the NGSS assessment. And this is a combination of all our grades combined. So our district report is here. And that is that we moved from 67.9% last year to 71.5% this year. So you know, and you've heard us talk about all of the focused attention that we've had towards improving our kids' science achievement. Here's grade 5. Pre-pandemic, we're at 84% at or above the target. Dropped down to 80% the year after, and then 80.1. Now it's interesting here, if you look at the 80.6 and the 80.1, because we're second in our DIRG. So those are all of the towns, all of the school districts that are considered in DIRG B that are like Cheshire, according to the state. And so if you look there, we are in, our grade 5 students scored 80.1, which brings us to second ranking in the DIRG. If you look at the history, in 2018, 2019, we were first in the DIRG. Last year we were third, this year we're second. So even though we had that little drop, when we look at all of the students across the DIRG, this was a lot of kids, we didn't drop too much in the rankings. We actually rose from 3 to 2. So now we'll take a look at 8th grade. So in 8th grade, we had a little bit of a dip. We haven't caught our pre-pandemic levels, but there are a couple of things we think could be indicative of that. We had a few teachers who were new, and so there's a bit of a curve there. And we also, there was some unavoidable absence situations where we've had to have a substitute in the classroom. So we don't think that that will be an issue going forward. And based on the work that we did in the spring and the work that was done over the summer, they had a very large representation at the professional learning that was conducted in the summer at the CWI, at the Curriculum Writing Institute, and there were a number of units conveyed there, and also the level of understanding. What we took back from that was how helpful that was to teachers, and they're energized going into the school year. So that's what we are attributing that to.
So when you're talking about absences and substitutes, these are long-term absences?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like along the lines of
Yeah.
So here is our grade 8 DIRG comparison. So you can see that even though we took a bit of a dip, we're at 12th out of the 19 other 8th grade districts within our DIRG. And then if you look here, we were steady at 9th place, pre-pandemic, post, and so like I said, we see that dip, but we think we know why that is. So when you look at grade 11, we had a significant increase this year. You can see that we have risen above the pre-pandemic levels. So I'm going to take a moment to talk about some of the things that were a concerted effort and a concerted focus last year. The primary focus was very much dedicated to improving student achievement, ensuring that students had the opportunity to make their learning visible, and really tweaking some of those instructional strategies in the classroom to be aligned with the next generation science standards. So we had more students engaged in talk circles, more students engaged in problem solving. We had folks from the Science Center here who trained the administrative team at the high school and as well as the middle school. We sent every single science teacher to a 3-day professional learning series up in Hartford at the Connecticut Science Center. We also engaged in coaching. We had regular meetings with the department, which both Mary and Maureen and her team, but even specifically Kristen Tells, worked with that department day in and day out on what they needed, where we were going. We purchased standards-aligned books for the teachers. So it was, I would say, an all-year event where everyone was, focused on the right shifts, and we saw quite a bit of growth.
Can you go back to the 3rd grade? Is it grade 3?
5.
5, 8, 11, right, okay. So are you doing the same intense training with elementary science teachers as you did with the high school, or?
They had that many years ago.
Okay, alrighty, okay. And so, and then with the 8th grade, you know, things happen. I mean, always happen. And so I guess my question is, if I understand there were blips, there were unforeseen circumstances, but is there any way that we could, that a system would be in place to, so that those changes aren't such a massive impact, don't have such a massive impact on
I think that the department
achievement.
was all at a readiness and all had a year of the training and the experience behind them, it would have been less impactful. Because they were in the middle of learning a lot of this and attending a lot of these professional learning sessions, I think that's where some of the inconsistencies happened.
Okay.
You know, you take a brand new teacher, take someone from another district, there's not just a microchip to have them learn it. And if your department is strong because this is something they've done for a number of years, it makes it easy when something new comes in. If you don't have that in the department, which they weren't there yet, then it makes it a little more challenging.
And did you hear from the 8th grade teachers a sense of frustration, or?
I think it's been hard. It's hard to learn something new. It's hard to let go of your favorite lesson, right? It's hard when we've switched from teaching content to teaching skills.
Okay.
And that's I don't think I could stress enough what a shift that is for people.
Okay.
And I'm not just talking about teachers in Cheshire,
Yeah.
really in general.
Okay.
So here you can see, let's see, where did we leave off? We were 14 out of 18 pre-pandemic, then we were 15 out of 19, and then we moved to 10th out of 19. So I really think that the concerted effort of everybody working together really is what drove the success. And I think we're not done. We have a significant way to go, but it's part of practice. So I think it will be easier to see the growth from here on out. So now we get to the SAT school day. This is our 11th graders. And you can see pre-pandemic where we were at our percentage that met or exceeded the benchmark. 21-22, we fell off that a little bit, and last year we did not see what we wanted to see in our ELA and math departments. I think what I described to you, and here is the DERG B ranking, so you can get a good look at the schools who outperformed us and also the schools who are trailing behind us. I should say the districts, not the schools. So while we have a significant catch-up to do in math, I think that work has begun. I think that work is in a good place. What I think is going to help this is the change in our textbook at the middle school. I think that will make a difference. And I think we're following the same pattern that we did for science to make this move. I think people were disappointed that we didn't see more growth in math because of the work that's been done, but I do think it is one of those things that's cumulative and that we need to continue down that road. So everything that I described to you, save for the coaching from the Connecticut Science Center, there is a plan in place to address these areas in both ELA and math. Maureen and Mary and the other administrators from the high school, we held a summer meeting with the department leaders in June, late June. We had a full day of looking at the standards, talking about what common assessments we need to have in place. and we have regular meetings set up for the entire school year to make sure that we're giving teachers all of the support they need to be able to drive this and make sure that our students have what they need to be successful. So I will point out also that if you look at our Connecticut rankings, both ELA and math, we're ranking 30th.
And how many schools are we counting total? 100 and...
So it's interesting.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're about 120, 118.
Yes, okay, sorry.
Meaning that
Sorry.
why is there none for math? It's just that there's not enough students for us to count them. We get like a little asterisk saying that there's not enough students took the test for whatever reason and they can't report it. So it's roughly 30 out of 118, 30 out of 120.
Can I ask a question about the SAT? So you're calling it the school day SAT. So it's apples to apples. It's
Yes.
it's the test on that day. It's not like your students takes the SAT
Super score or anything like that.
another time
Yeah.
or and another time.
Right.
So is that the day that all schools take that test?
I mean, they don't all take it on the exact same day.
But it's the
very
same time
similar.
of year.
Right. Yeah.
So we really are looking at apples to
We
apples. Maybe a Macintosh to a golden.
Okay.
Which our tent had all of those out, if you recall, on Saturday.
Yes.
So what are our conclusions? Overall, we're trending toward pre-COVID academic levels, and I see us surpassing that in the next couple of years. We've got the 8th highest achievement in Connecticut for ELA and math in grades 3 through 8. Where our focus needs to be is on engaging high school students in classrooms that feature active learning and that emphasize application and complex thinking. That is the message. It's a resounding message. It's in our professional learning, it's in our faculty meetings, all of the support, all of the resources that we have is around that. We're not teaching to the test, we're teaching kids how to be thinkers, because we know that if they can read well, they'll understand the complexity of the problems that's on that test. And that if they have the skills to persevere and the stamina to have productive struggle, that they will make it through that test and that they can do well. So everything that we're doing is laser beam focused on that engagement. And then the ELA improvement plans that we made through the curriculum review process this year give us that roadmap. So we saw some real synergy at the end of the 5-year ELA CCC review. You had elementary, middle, and high school people all working together, all really sharing their success. And it looks much like the roadmap that was used in science. Math is on that path. We need to see that pay off. So that this is where the work is and where the work is focused for this year.
Something you said just made, can we just go back to the math? Look at the, have you been able to look at those SAT results, especially with the math, to see if the weakness is in applying the math or understanding
Yes.
the problem? And where is it?
I don't think it's applying or understanding.
Is
I
it
think
reading the problem?
It's broken down even farther than that. So it's broken down in a lot of different ways, and I won't say it's in general one thing or the other. It's a myriad of things, and it really depends on the courses that the students took previously. So we're looking at what courses did they take. One thing that we are very sensitive to is that there was a spike out group that was a small group originally for accelerated math, like super accelerated math, and that ended up taking on a life of its own. And there was a demand to have more and more students in that. By doing that, we don't think that students really benefited, because they took the math so long ago that when they were faced with Algebra 1, Algebra 2 on the test, they had taken it so long before they sat down for the SAT that there were some things that they struggled with. So by and large, our accelerated students do well on this, but there are some pockets where we've noticed, they could be doing really well, but there are still some pockets where we need to make sure that they're doing well on the test and can figure out problems. We're also looking at our average students who are in college level coursework, making sure that they have exposure to those standards too. So this is a group of students who have been exposed to the Common Core as elementary students, and now that is working its way up. And so we need to make sure that those standards are being taught in each of those courses. Not what was typically taught in a algebra class, but what needs to be taught in an algebra class based on the standards that have been outlined that are on this test.
I also find it interesting that Avon is knocking it out of the park here, but they were at the
Not
bottom.
in science.
Pardon me?
You were saying science, right?
Well, they were in for the
I'm sorry.
standard, no, for this standard, the basic skills test, they're at the bottom of the heap in the JERG.
For the elementary?
Yeah, I don't, they were not there and with the elementary. So what are they doing?
Yeah, in grade 5 for the NGSS, they were last.
They were last.
Yeah.
Are they teaching the test? Is it all that SAT prep coming home to roost? I don't.
We'll have to make a little road trip to.
I know, what are you guys doing? Okay, I mean, you're doing what you gotta do. Do you have goals, or do you know, I mean, have you set?
Oh my gosh, yes.
I know you do, I know.
And we also
And-
look at PSAT to SATs to look at that as a growth measure and how our kids performing on the PSAT in October, and then, you know, where do they need support when they take it? It's in March or April, so those are all pieces of what we're looking at to really move our students forward.
And just to bring it first full circle in the flexibilities that we just talked about and that you guys are approving, every single teacher needs to identify a goal in their subject area. So 80% of mine, 90% of my students will make this growth. They will make this achievement. That's a meeting that we have in the beginning of the year. We follow up with that at the middle of the year, follow up with that at the end of the year. So Mary was working with her teacher, some of her teacher leaders today, to say these goals need to be explicitly tied to our school goals and our district goals. So that message is coming through clearly.
Can I ask about the new math textbook and, because that's 6th, 7th, 8th, right?
Yes.
And that is,
iReady.
so, right,
Yeah.
so teachers were they trained?
Yes. They had training, actually, we held part of it during the Curriculum Writing Institute, where a rep came and met with them. And they've also, so they had a couple, they had some last year, some over the summer, and they've been working on that as part of their professional development this year as well.
How does that work with the 6th grade not being
Well,
with the middle school?
they're being brought in with the middle school. So there's ample opportunities. We don't want to have those conversations in isolation.
Yeah.
So on
That's what I was
Friday,
thinking.
August 25th, which was our first day of PD, those 6th grade teachers were located and met all day at Dodd with the 7th and 8th grade teachers. And
Specifically for the math?
specifically
Yes,
for
just
the math, just with those subject areas. And if you recall, when Kevin shared with us throughout the year how often they were meeting and they were trying out some of the lessons, they were all having those conversations together, 6, 7, and 8.
Yeah, even today, our elementary math coach and our middle school division leader and I met because there's some early assessments that go with this, so we're taking a look at that, trying to interpret it, make sure we understand it. So that I'm feeling pretty confident about our communication 6, 7, 8, and our collaboration 6, 7, 8. Sometimes it is a challenge to get the 6th grade teachers together in and of themselves in the
Yeah,
same way we do in 7th and 8th grade, but we have ways that we can do that. So leveraging the PD days and other times like that is important.
I just think in getting off on the right foot with that new math curriculum.
We did training in
You
June.
really want the
Everybody's 6, 7, 8,
6th
so
to
they
go,
could
the 7th
settle.
to the 8th to all be really.
People had a chance
Yeah.
to let it wash over them a little bit and do some planning over the summer. We had teachers reach out in the summer waiting for kind of moving from trial logins to actual logins because they wanted to make sure that they were ready and those kind of things. So that's, we've got a crew that's pretty well on board with trying to make sure they understand exactly the design. They all want to start off with the right foot too.
Great, thank you. Okay, well, thank you for that. And fingers crossed. But
No, you don't have to cross your fingers.
I know,
We
I
are-
think that is,
we are-
I know.
Yeah, you know, we're not leaving it to hope or chance, we're.
yeah,
hoping to-
I know.
But I appreciate the sentiment, thank you.
All right, I did B, multilingual learner
Yeah.
enrollment.
So there's a couple of reasons why I wanted us to begin to talk about this today. Each year, we share with you the students who we need to screen. They are given the Lost Links test, and that determines, based on the 3 areas of the test, whether or not they will need to receive some services, right? They'll need to take the test. We want to know if they're progressing and they're entitled to some support. So that testing needs to be done and compiled, and we need to report on it as of October 1st. So that's one sort of piece of this. The other piece is that the state is now looking at a seal of biliteracy for students at the high school level. Not just for our high-achieving students who have mastered a language other than English, but rather for our multilingual students who have mastered English to the extent that they now would be eligible for this distinction as the seal, having a seal of biliteracy. So I thought it would be interesting to take a look at, and have one from Mary and Maureen as well, if you want to pass those over. This will give you a snapshot of, this is the native languages that students report coming into Cheshire Public Schools. So Albanian to Arabic to Cantonese to French to Greek to Hebrew to Italian, Korean, all the way down to Urdu and Vietnamese, Ukrainian, Turkish, Thai, and everything in between. And then you can see the breakdown by each school. So that in total, we have 477 students whose native language is not English.
I was going to ask that. So that means when you're talking multilingual students, English is not their first.
Right. So when we are doing everything that we are doing, we are focused on supporting teachers to be able to teach students whose English is not their first language. So every year through our Title III grant, we get some funding to help support that and have typically hired a coach out of ACES. We've had 2 wonderful coaches. The coach who we're working with this year is going to start out by focusing on working with our high school teachers to really zone in on what kinds of instructional strategies do they need in working with this range of, where are we with Cheshire High School? Cheshire High School has 124 students whose English is not their first language. Now, by the time students get to the high school, typically they're no longer considered an English learner because they came in usually much younger and they've had exposure, they've had support, they have passed that lost test. But we don't want to forget that the students came in that way because we want to make sure that if there's a parent conference, that we're offering translation services, that if there is a course that they're taking, that teacher's aware of that as an asset, that this is a student who can speak more than one language, but also that just because you passed the LOS doesn't mean you might not struggle with English as your second language or third language. So that was my, the impetus for me sharing this today, because I would imagine that over the course of this year, you'll be hearing this group, as well as the Board of Education will be hearing from us about the seal of biliteracy and what that means.
It's fabulous.
So the legislature last session passed the, I don't even know what number it was, but the bill that required everything sent home to be in native language, native language? Do you recall that? And how with 50 languages, 60, how many do we have
I
there?
really like Google Translate. Google Translate has become our friend. We have a number of
My
systems
students
that
like it too.
help us. Yeah, on the other side. You're all familiar with Parent Square and the message
Yeah.
that Jeff sends out. That has the ability
To translate?
translate
Okay.
messages. So Ryan and now Mike Woods are using that service to be able to make sure that teachers know that this is available, because this is, a significant number of languages. It doesn't do every language, but we're able to do the best that we can with a number of these. And the translation services have also been very helpful during conference time.
Okay, all right. And then of these, I assume that many of them are siblings in here? Do we know, I mean, because that sort of helps, I would think, in terms of the instruct, or at least,
There's reports that we pull in Power School that indicate how many families, because you can see who siblings
Yeah.
are. So we're able to say, okay, the Solano family speaks X if, we can
Right.
communicate with them. And that's why it's so important that we have in the position that Mike is in, that we have someone who could be that liaison between the multilingual learners and their families for exactly the issue that you bring up, that a lot of these children are from the same family. Also, I don't want to lose sight of every October, Kevin puts together an information session for our English
Right.
learner families. And so we're able to go over what kind of services that we offer, make sure we're introducing them to folks at every level, elementary, middle, high school. We have an EL teacher or a TESOL teacher at the high school. We have someone who does that work at the middle school and also at the elementary school, Pat Castle. We've got some learning support tutors who also support with that. And then, we have Mike here at central office. So we're trying to target this on all levels. But I thought it would be interesting for you all to see this, because I'm not sure until we see it in front of us like that, we really recognize how many students we're talking about.
It's a lot. It's growing, right?
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, we've been growing for a couple of years, and Kevin has put together a report that shows that, and he'll have additional information for us probably after October 1st to say where we are for the 23-24 school year.
Okay. Is it possible, you'll have this at the board meeting, right? Can you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you like me to bring copies?
Yeah, I
Sure.
think they should see this.
I
Yeah.
don't mind that.
Yeah, same
Sure.
here. Thanks. That's amazing.
Just want to hand you a thing, or do you want to hang on to
So
it?
is that-
Okay, that's fine.
Is that, this, what is, it's an honor or a certification, some certification?
Seal of
A
biliteracy.
seal,
Yeah.
biliteracy. Is that something new? Is it
Well,
Is it
it's not new.
national? Is it?
I know they have had it in Connecticut for a number of years, and they've been talking about it. At the state, they've now decided to make it a requirement that we have to report on. So I think with the influx of multilingual learners, they're trying to draw more attention to it.
Do you think that influx of multilingual learners is statewide?
Yeah.
It very much is
Yeah.
following the trend of the state. We're seeing an increase in multilingual learners, and that's a statewide trend.
Well, I know up in Maine, they're seeing the same thing, I think.
I'm sure there are various states that are seeing it, and there are probably others that are
Mhm.
not.
All right, and then lastly, the Curriculum Writing Institute.
Sure, so I know you've heard us talk about it a couple of times, but I just wanted to, again, just make you aware of the vast array of units that were worked on over the summer. So this is just a quick look at the grades and the subject areas that teachers worked on. So you can see we started out in grade 1 with a research and writing unit on marine animals. In second grade, teachers worked on Mexican culture. I won't read all of them to you, but the K-5, the library media specialists worked on a grade 1 inquiry unit about comparing and contrasting. World language did a significant amount of work in both French and German and Latin. There was an architecture unit done by the art department. Everything from ukuleles to health units to project adventure. So I just thought you might like to see, what are they doing at that Curriculum Writing Institute that people are wearing t-shirts for?
Might we have another Board of Ed demonstration? Didn't we have that
We did,
maybe the
We did.
first year?
yeah.
First year, that's right.
Whereby we were subjected to participating in those lessons.
Oh, right.
But it really gave you a feel of
How they were making
how,
authentic tasks.
yeah, how great it was. You could see how the students would like that and thereby be really engaged in what they're doing. And you can see what the lesson is clearly about trying to teach them. So
Right.
I thought it was really.
Yeah, we focused all of our showcases that year at the elementary, middle, and high school on those things. Let's see what we could do.
So what are
Kindergarten meeting for that first one.
Huh?
Kindergarten meeting for that first one.
Yeah, I remember that one
I
too.
think that predates, when was that?
No,
No, you were there.
That was the
Was
first.
that there?
yeah,
Oh, I guess I do remember it, yeah.
the one where they showed us how they were doing
Yes.
it.
So collection of units really means
Just
that
at
health
multiple-
lessons isn't every day. You only have X number
Okay.
of health lessons. So it was more of a collection of units. One lesson might not necessarily tie to the others. They have so much to cover.
Right.
It's not as if you're going to health in the same way that you're going to your math class every single day.
Mm-hmm. And Future Fest for British literature, what's that? That's English, British literature, future.
Yeah, the CHS logo.
Yeah, I assume it is. I don't think they're reading
Yeah.
British
That's throwing me off.
literature yet.
That's the Brit Lit class, they
Yeah.
they do like a kind of end of year culminating project with the students, and so one piece of that, he was reviewing
Okay,
and touching up.
okay. Okay. Busy. And how many participated this year?
We definitely had about 80.
Mm-hmm.
An exact number, it was ballpark 80. We really can't do more than 80 in that one space, and that, I don't believe, included the science that was kind of on there working, and they were working at the science center, and then we had folks there for iReady. We had over 100 teachers in the building that day.
Great.
It's just a little FYI.
Good.
It's nice. More down and dirty than we've heard before, so I wanted you to see it.
All right, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Paper bag. So, all right, well that,
I'll give Tony's papers back.
there's this, there ends us. I think that's a wrap. Yeah, it is. I think they, when, just to, well, you and I can talk about this later, but, just talking with test results, I'll botch it. I know I'll botch it at the
We'll
meeting,
chat.
so maybe what we can do is talk about who's gonna talk about what. All right, so,
So moved. I
Oh.
move to adjourn this meeting.
all right, I second it, all in favor? All right, that's it.